Okay, I'm going to show you how you can prepare an SVG file for an envelope, or an SVG file for an envelope for an odd size card. For example, I have a card that's just a little teeny tiny bit bigger than an A2 card, and if I use an envelope punch board, the next size up makes the envelope way too big. So this is the way you can customize an SVG. So I have a card size that's 4.5 by 5.5. So I'm going to start by creating a square or a rectangle, and I'm going to make the width of that 1.25 inches bigger than the card size. So I like my horizontal to be the longest one, so that's 5.5 inches, plus 1.25 is 6.75 inches for the width. The height of this particular card is 4.5 inches, so adding 1.25 is 5.75. So this is going to be the base of our envelope. I'm going to add another square, and this is going to be 0.5 by 0.5, and I'm going to change this color to yellow. And I'm going to do my select tool. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. So that gives us 4 little squares, which I'm going to put roughly in the 4 corners of this rectangle. Then I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to select this one in the upper left hand corner. And then I'm also going to select the big rectangle. I am going to come up to Object, Align and Distribute, and I am going to set this to the top, which is this one, Align Top Edge, and then Align Left Edge. Then I'm going to come up to Path, and I'm going to do Division. And that will take that one out. Now we're going to do the same with the rest of them. So hold down your Shift key to control the big one. Oh, and relative to the biggest object, I forgot to mention that under Align here. Okay, this one we want to align to the top, and this time we want to align to the right. Then we'll come up to Path and Division. Now click somewhere out here to deselect what you've got selected. We'll select this one. Hold down the Shift, select the whole thing. This time we're going to align it to the bottom and to the left. And then we'll come up to Path and Division. Click somewhere out here to unselect everything. We'll select this one. Shift key to select that. And we're going to align this to the right and to the bottom. And we will go Path, Path, and Division. And let's click out here. And so now, let's move all these little squares out of the way so that we can delete them. So this is now the base of our envelope. So now I'm going to put another square, and just for now, I'll put it at 3 by 3. I'm going to put the Select tool, and I am going to come up to Object and Transform. Go to Rotate. I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees and apply. Now I want to slice this in half. So I'm going to create another square. I'm going to give it a different color just so that I can differentiate. And I am going to come over here to my Zoom tool, and I'm going to zoom in really close to that corner. And then I'm going to click and drag this up till it's almost there. Then I'm going to click and drag here so I can see really well where I'm at. I'm going to select tool and just drag this up until it's right at that corner. Hold down the shift key and select your top square here, and we are going to come to object or path and division. And so now what we've got, well, and I don't like how that is, so I'm going to do undo, undo, undo division. I didn't like how that looked, and so I'm going to bring this maybe about to here. Let's see how this looks. Path and division. Okay, I still don't like how that looks. And so let's bring it down maybe so that, let's see what happens when the top of this line, or of the, because our stroke here, if you don't have a stroke, like if I remove the stroke and I don't have a stroke here, and up here, if we come down here, right click on here and remove the stroke, and that removes the outline, maybe that will make it a little easier. Let's see what happens if we do it this way. And path and division. Yeah, that looks better. So we'll remove the stroke if a stroke comes up, because the stroke is kind of throwing us off here. And so I'm going to maybe put this 1 to 2. Now let's bring, oops, select tool. Let's put them both together here, because, which is something we should have done before we divided this. I want the length from here to here to be the same length as from here to here. So our original one here, the width is 6.752 or 6.75, and so we want this to be 6.75 minus this 1/2 inch and this 1/2 inch. So that's going to be 5.75. So let's select both of these and we'll change the width to 5.75. And we want to make sure that we lock our aspect ratio here. And so hit enter. So that should give us our 2 flaps for the top and for the bottom. Now let's expand this view really well. And it's the same thing here. We've got a stroke down here, so let's go to our select tool and let's remove that stroke. So we'll right click on this red stroke down here and remove the stroke. And have my select tool, and let's drag this down to where we're almost touching. And let's really zoom in this area here so we can see it really well. Select tool and drag this down so that it touches. And then hold the shift key and let's choose our main one, and we're going to do path and union. And so that is making our first flap. And we'll repeat the process down here at the bottom. Select tool, we'll drag this down as almost touching. And then I'll expand it as much as I can. Select tool, and we'll click and drag this until it touches. Hold down the shift key and select our main one. And we'll go path and union. And so now we've got our top and bottom flap done. Now we're going to do the flaps for the side. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a square, and let's put it 3 by 3, just 4 druthers, and do the transform tool or the select tool, and we want to rotate it by 45 degrees. So we want to make sure it's selected and rotate it by 45 degrees. Now we want this height to be the height from here to here. So our original rectangle along the height was 5.75, and then we want to subtract an inch again to account for these 2 half inches. So we want this height to be 4.75. So we want to make sure our aspect ratio is locked, and we will do 4.75. Now we want to slice this one in half. So I'm going to put another square here and make it a little bit bigger. And let's do our select tool. Let's make this a different color. Let's make this one yellow. And I'm going to bring it real close to that edge. And then we will expand to be really close. And then I'm going to click and drag this until they touch on the end. Hold down my Shift key and select both of them. And we're going to go Path and Division. Now let's go to the Zoom tool and go 1 to 2. And Select tool. And now we've got our 2 flaps for this side. So we're going to zoom in real close, select tool, and bring this over as close until it's almost touching. Zoom in real close. And then we'll bring this in to when it's just on the edge. Shift key, select them both, and Path and Division. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Edit, Undo Division. Let's select them both again. We want Path and Union. And let's go to the Zoom tool and go to 2 to 1. Actually, 1 to 2. Now we're going to do this side. So let's zoom in, select tool, get almost to the edge, and I'll zoom in some more. Bring that just where it's kissing that edge. Shift key, select them both, Path and Union. And it looks like I was a little off there. Let's undo that union. And I want to move this down just a tad. And select them both again, and Path and Union. That looks better. Okay, now we'll go out to our Zoom. Do 1 to 2. Now we've completed our envelope. Now what we need to do is add the score lines. So I'm going to add another square. And we want the score line to come right along here like this. So let's do the Select tool. And so we want our score lines to be the card size plus 0.25. So our long width was 5.5, so we want that to be 5.75. So we need to unlock our aspect ratio here. And so we want our width to be 5.75. And we want our height to be 4.5, which is the height of our card, plus 0.25, which is 4.75. And then we'll put them both together, select that, and select both of them. And now we want the transform. If this window isn't open over here, that is under Object and Transform. And we want to center it on the vertical axis, and we want to center it on the horizontal axis. Okay, and it's important at this point that you do not group these yet. We just want to select the envelope and the score line, but we do not want to group them yet. We want to do the rotate before we group them. So we're going to rotate them 45 degrees. So if the transform isn't up, you come to Object and Transform, click on the Rotate tab, 45 degrees, and Apply. Now once we've rotated it, now we can come over here and right click and we can group. The reason why you don't want to group it before you rotate is because when you import it into Design Space, it imports before it was rotated. Something just screwy. I just found that you have to do your grouping after you do your rotation. So now we've grouped these two. Now another thing that I've found is that it comes into Design Space at the wrong size. You'll notice here the size here is 8.132 by 8.132. When we import this SVG into Design Space, it won't come in at the correct proportions. So I'm just going to add some text here. Resize to 8.134 by 8.134. And let's do the select tool and make sure that our aspect ratio is locked. Actually, it's, well, 8.134. It's really 8.132, but that doesn't matter. And then we'll select all this, right click and group, and just be on the safe side, let's go Path, Object to Path, File, Save As. We want to save it as a plain SVG. I'll call it small envelope. I'm going to overwrite this one that's already there. And now we'll go to Design Space, and we want to go to Upload, Upload Image, Browse, and browse to the folder where we saved it. I just happen to be right here, so we'll be there. And we'll save this. And insert images. And you'll notice the size here, 2.869. That's why we want here, we'll resize this to 8.134. We're going to keep our aspect ratio locked because it's a square. I'm going to right click and I'm going to ungroup because we don't need the text. I want to change this to a score line. And then the last thing we want to do is attach them. So now we have our custom envelope, which is designed for a card that is 4.5 by 5.5 inches. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.